Hey, I'm Diana. I actually never intended to stay here. I'd been visiting a friend up on Vancouver Island, and he'd said, why don't you settle like around Seattle or something, down there. Then we could meet up, we could take some road trips together, maybe we'll start a little business there, thinking it would be like Texas. Well, it's not. It's very expensive up here. It's very closed. So I'll just get a little job, a little retail job, maybe get a little efficiency or whatever, and work for 6-8 months and see what it's about, and then I'll either stay or I'll move on. And it just never happened. Well, immediately our apartment rent went up $200 a month. And I was barely making my part of it before that, and before I knew it, because I was on his lease. I was being relegated to a couch or wherever I could find, and my room was rented out to 2 men, and here I was in an apartment with 2 men I didn't know and one I did. And I was getting belittled, berated, yelled at. I was expected to clean up all the mess, which was a lot. They didn't. And so that was the first time, I guess, I really had to move out to my car, and I became homeless. I was employed, I just wasn't employed enough. And like a lot of people have said, I lost my housing here the first time because I was denied antibiotics when I needed them from the doctor, thanks to Obamacare. I ended up going to the hospital and being treated for sepsis and pneumonia in both lungs, and nowhere to go when I got out of the hospital, and I could barely walk. And I was allowed to stay at the Agape House for 2 weeks, respite, then kicked to the curb, spent the night in the Mission when I really didn't feel much better than I'd felt when I got out of the hospital. And then the next day, I had to go back to work when I could barely walk to my car. And I was wondering, how am I going to wash my hair and get clean before I have to be at work? And I mean, it's the little things that really get you. And I was bullied at work. Once they found out I was homeless, I was bullied, and I was eventually fired. And I was a very hard worker. The manager or the owner went from, can you work more hours even though you lose your Obamacare? Can you work more hours? You're such a good worker. To, you don't know your job. I didn't get unemployment. I was scrambling to find another gig job. I've processed fish. I did temp work at Walmart. I demoed foods at Winco. And I did telephone soliciting, which was horrible. And that burned up my lungs. In the meantime, I'm doing manual labor that's eating up my back. And I've lost a lot of my muscle mass from being so ill. And it's just been a real rocky road since then. And I will say this is one thing about being homeless that has really struck me. And this is something that no one, and when Doug talks about, he can make a mistake, and he has people that will catch him if he falls. They're there to back him up. Well, if you don't, and if you make a mistake or you accept a job that isn't gonna, you accepted a job you can, but you're never gonna be able to pay the rent. And finally, I reached a point where couldn't get help with my back that was going out. I do have a really good pulmonologist. And I get a little help with that. But I pretty much had to give up on medical care. Now I don't have a doctor except my pulmonologist. And I'm just going to have to make it without. I've got a really bad tooth right now. When I went in to have it pulled, they said, well, you'll have to, we could take x-rays, make a little money off you that way, but we can't pull the tooth today. We'll have to make an appointment. The appointment is for 60 days. Are you serious? Are you serious? So I've kind of given up on really getting anything done with my teeth up here in Bellingham. It's probably going to have to be at a dental school, or if they have one in Seattle, something like that, where I could really get up on a program that's going to take care of my teeth, whether it's having them all ripped out or whatever. But I've got to have something done. It's really affecting my health. And we're just getting at the despair. Now, I was lucky that I have a vehicle. I don't think I would be alive right now I don't think I would have been able to handle it physically if I'd had to live in a tent like these people. I don't know how they're doing it. I feel so bad. No one deserves to live like that. We're not born with fur coats like dogs, and we take better care of animals than we do our fellow human beings, and it's so disgusting. And I'm going to tell you what really gets you is when you're there by yourself and you have no one. It's the despair. You're a throwaway. If you have a little bit of money, you can find housing for your belongings, any material possessions that you might have and you might want to keep. But there's no place for you.
Sort of take me into how you got here to Homes Now.
Here. Well, actually, I was in my car and I was staying between Cornwall and the fish hatchery. Those were the only two places I knew of, and neither of them were safe. They were both getting more dangerous. People banging on your car at night, banging on your windows, telling you to let them in and all this stuff. You have to move your car. Where are you going to go? How much of it are you going to, it just a nightmare. And I will tell you this, when you call the police, they'll laugh at you. The dispatchers, I've never seen, they'll act like they don't know where you are or what you're talking about. So they're not going to be there to help you if you get in a problem. And that's one thing I found out the hard way. This terrifying. And but I think it was Marcus who was doing some outreach work, and I think he came by and gave me some blankets and food and stuff a couple of times. And he told me about the thing they were doing up at City Hall. And I thought, well, good, that'll be a safe place for me to camp at night. So I'd still go out into Cornwall Park or wherever and park during the day, but in the evening, I would go to City Hall because it was a safe place for me to park my car so I could set up my car for the night, go to sleep, and I felt pretty safe. And then I met Doug through Marcus, and he told me I'd applied for housing months before, and he said, oh, we were trying to get in touch with you. We have your application, and they kind of rushed me through. I just had to get my COVID test, and I'm very grateful. It makes all the difference in the world to have a safe place to go that is warm and dry. And I think that of all the people that I've met that are trying to help homeless people, Doug is the best. He is the angel. He doesn't put anyone down. He doesn't degrade anyone. He just tries to help. He makes dinner every Sunday for all of us. Can you believe it? And there's a kindness. Now here a lot of us are older, and so it's pretty quiet. I don't know, it's nothing like, say, up at the courthouse. There's none of that nonsense. And we all do fine. A lot of us have had our own businesses. We've had our own homes. We had children. We've run our own lives. But if there's not enough money, if there's no way for you to, as an individual, to bring in enough money, you're not married, you don't have another partner who's helping you bring in that second income, there's no way for you to make it here. But they won't, there's no way for you to leave. That's why they have this big homeless problem here. And it's just greed. On one hand, you see some of the most generous people, probably in the nation, and then you see the greediest. It's like, and so maybe in that respect it is kind of like Texas, but and there again, it's been a few years since I've been there, and I've noticed that their rents are increasing. And so when you have private investors, when everything is for profit, from your medical care, housing, there's no way for a person to, once they're down, unless they've got a really good skill set, they're not going to get back up. But once they started rising, once the rent started rising, and there's no stratified housing. Okay, so we've got this great place right here. Or you get someone off meth. Where's the job? Where is there a place for them in your society to continue live a productive life, live a decent life? And frankly, there isn't one here. Is there one somewhere else? I don't know. What is our country's changing so rapidly right now? But if you don't have stratified housing, which is something we did have in the 60s and the 70s, they started destroying it in the 70s, and by the 80s it was all acquisitions, mergers. Also, when I was young, businesses would buy apartments as tax write-offs. They were not for profit. And that's why renting was quite a bit cheaper than owning a home. And now, you've got people who not only want you to pay their mortgage, they want to make a profit on top of it. That's where the greed comes in. And I don't know if community, someone's got to step up. And also, let's face it, your city and county, they want those tax dollars. So they don't want to say, you know what, we're going to do some zoning, permitting here. We're going to use our powers to create spaces for the service workers in our economy. But we don't even give anybody a chance to be a productive member of society or just to have a place, just to occupy a space. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm more liberal than the conservatives think, and I'm more conservative than the liberals like, and that's the way I think most of us are. But we want to pigeonhole everybody, and that's the problem. We have the worst of socialism and the worst of capitalism in this country. And the worst ages to be are in your 50s, because nobody wants you as a worker. Whatever you have, you lose monetarily, and then you get a little bitty check. And the last of your productive years weren't your most productive. They were probably your least productive years because you were just getting whatever job someone would give you. And people who do the best are the self-employed if they've got a good business. But we see that they're making it harder and harder to create and maintain businesses. Now, if you have a little side, computer consulting business, probably doesn't affect you. But if you're trying to open up a little deli or restaurant or something like that, it's very expensive. You've got a whole lot on the line monetarily, and if you can't bring that money in, and your profit margin is going to be pretty low, and if you can't bring that in, you're going to lose. You're going to lose everything. And then good luck trying to get back on your feet again.